Afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here, taking a look at the tropical update for August 29th of 2019. Brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. Big thanks to them for helping us out with this and allowing us to bring you guys the latest on what's happening in the tropics. Gulf of Mexico is where we like to start around here, and well, there's really not much to speak of. We've got a couple of clouds and maybe some showers off the coast of Louisiana, but outside of that, really, we're paying close attention to what's happening with Dorian out here, which is looking a little bit better this afternoon. We've got a little bit of deep convection trying to wind itself up around the center of the storm. You can also see that while it was moving to the north, it looks like it's more of a north-northwest or northwesterly kick. It's kind of taken more of a west-northwesterly track here in the later frames. We've got a lot going on with Dorian out here. And I'm going to switch over to the water vapor to kind of march some things out. We've got an upper level low here, we've got Dorian here, we've got another upper level low back here, and then we've got a developing ridge of high pressure to the north, which is building in back in behind Aaron as Aaron departs to the north, now post-tropical, not associated with anything tropical anymore. But this upper level low here, as we slide in, I'm going to run this back one more time. Right there kind of drifted off to the southwest and then went back to the west and then back off to the northwest a little bit. The interaction between this thing and Dorian is going to be what dictates, I tend to think, over the next little bit when it finally starts to hook around and make more of a westerly kick. And we're starting to kind of see that with Dorian. Here we can put the arrow for Dorian on here. And gets it kind of moving west-northwest or north-northwest, north-northwest, and now maybe trying to tail a little more west-northwest as this upper level low kind of exits back off to the west as well. But that's not all. It's also interacting with a ridge of high pressure which is set off or trying to build in around Bermuda off to the north. How far that noses back off to the west is going to dictate when Dorian decides to go back to the north. So you've got one thing which is pulling it more westerly and southwesterly, another thing which is going to decide when it goes north and northeasterly eventually. So there's a lot of moving parts with this. So once we get beyond that, and real quick, we've got a wave coming off the coast of Africa and another one back in behind that worth watching as we head through about the next week. The good news with these is that the modeling picks up on both of these, develops actually both of these into something, but does so quick that they, in the models at least so far, turn north and don't ever bother anybody but the fish, which is good news. All right, back to Dorian we go. This is as of the 10 a.m. advisory. 85 mile an hour wind, gusting to 105, moving northwest at 13 miles an hour. Of course, the next update comes out at 4 o'clock. Pressure was at 986. At the last pass from the hurricane hunters, I want to say that they found pressure down to 983. But the idea is that it'll eventually be a 3 and then a Category 4 as it approaches the coast of Florida. The official forecast cone, let's get in here a little bit tighter, does turn Dorian to the north at some point. Now, even if it's down here to the south, it does turn it to the north, and you can kind of see that here by the lines. You can take these lines as kind of what direction as a perpendicular to these lines is it going. And so you've got kind of more of a back to the northwest after it turns to go a little more north. That's the turn that we're anticipating, and I know everybody in South Mississippi and Louisiana and even parts of Alabama are going, all right, but we've walked down the turn street before, and it didn't end very well for us. There's a big difference. There's been a lot of time between this time and the last time that we were talking about waiting for something to turn. The big difference this time is we're actually talking about a hurricane at this time. The last time we were talking about a tropical depression or a weak tropical storm. And weak tropical storms and depressions sometimes don't follow the official forecast cone because they're a little more difficult to forecast, where hurricanes do tend to stay at least close to the cone. The original cone with this thing actually had it moving over a little farther to the south. Let's slide this down. Had this moving over parts of Hispaniola where, well, it was way off to the east of that. The reason it has a tough time getting a forecast for something that's weakly organized that can't find the center of it. When it can find the center of it, when you're talking about a hurricane, the cone is a little bit better when you go 7 days out. That's not to say that this won't change, but that's to say if you continue to watch this, it will probably be close to what the cone is saying. I was looking this up, and I found that between this system and Katrina, which today being the anniversary of the landfall of Hurricane Katrina, that you have as much or more computing power in your Apple Watch than they did with the computers that were running the models out for the spaghetti plots that got the forecast for Hurricane Katrina. So we've made some pretty decent leaps and bounds in terms of technology. I don't know that anyone's going to ask Siri where a hurricane is going to go. Speaking of spaghetti plots, let's take a look at them. Here we go through Friday morning. Notice you can probably discount these right away because they think the beginning of the storm, the start of it, is right here and down there. And well, these are all clustered real close together, which gives you some pretty decent confidence that at least they're initializing at the right place. By Friday night, then it starts to make the big turn, and by Saturday into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, now that's when it makes the turn off to the north. Notice that yes, there are 1 or 2 or 3 outliers here that do get into the Gulf of Mexico and keep moving off to the west, but a vast majority of these do turn this thing to the north. You may be saying to yourself, well, yeah, Nick, but there was one outlier for Hurricane Katrina that did make it into the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what happened with Hurricane Katrina. The difference is that one outlier was one of about a dozen models. On this one, we've got, I believe, 53. So a 1 in 12 shot or 1 in 53 shot. There's just a big difference between what we're doing now and then. Now the models tend to handle things a little bit better than they did, 14 years ago. We'll head over to the American model, which has the GFS out here, or it has the American model is the GFS, which has Dorian out here, approaching Florida as we head through Sunday. It also develops as I head over to the coast of Africa, that next wave coming off the coast as well. This one turns Dorian north over the spine of the peninsula, and you can see the other system that's out there into the open Atlantic kind of turns to the north and falls apart, gets eaten by dry air as we head through Friday of next week. And yet another system coming off of the coast, another wave coming off the coast of Africa that we may see develop into something. Let's head over to the European model, which I believe this is the latest, the afternoon version of the European. Not the morning. We'll know, or I'll know here in a hot second, based on what happens with Dorian here as it approaches the Bahamas and sags back off to the south. We end up with, remember that little upper low that I was showing you right ahead of Dorian? Well, that ends up into the Gulf of Mexico trying to do something as it approaches Mexico. So here's Dorian, which takes kind of a sag off to the south and west, but then turns back off to the north and goes right up the coast of Florida and digs itself into the Carolinas before heading back out to sea. And this one also develops 2 other waves back in behind it out into the open Atlantic, keeping those away from the mainland of the United States as dry air builds back in behind Dorian. So what causes this? Big ridge of high pressure that we've been waiting to build in, the Bermuda High on the backside of Dorian. It's there, sort of, and then we've got another ridge back off to the northwest of us here in South Mississippi. But notice how it approaches the Bahamas. Here's your alleyway to the north. What it should do at this point is turn back around and go right up that alley and go north toward the poles. The big ridge over here hasn't developed quite as much. The big ridge over here seems like it's really developing. What it does is it sees that alleyway and says, oh, yep, I found it, here I go, and it goes right to the north. As these 2 ridges build up, it gets squeezed in between them both and goes off to the north and toward the poles like these systems like to do when they get good and strong. So right now, Dorian, the official forecast, does have it making landfall somewhere along the Florida, perhaps even as far north as the Georgia coastline. Sometime between Sunday at noon and Tuesday at noon, and I know that's kind of a wide window. The idea is that it's going to slow down as it approaches Florida. The speed at which it approaches Florida is going to dictate how far across Florida, or into Florida, I suppose, that it gets before it starts to turn north. Most of the models now showing a turn north, a lot like a couple of years ago Irma that kind of made that hard pivot north. Kind of the same idea here. We're waiting to see when that hard pivot off to the north is going to be. And so it's more of a wait and see game. For folks in and along the Gulf of Mexico, just know, as of right now, I've been saying we got to wait till Thursday, we got to wait till Thursday, we got to wait till Thursday. As of now, it looks like most of the models, again, have that turning north before it gets into or too far into the Gulf of Mexico. And the alleyway that it's been waiting for really opens up as we head through Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, which would allow Dorian, wherever it is, to turn back north and northeast and away from places like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Does that mean we're in the clear? No. Does that mean we can breathe a little easier today? I hope so. But please keep tabs on the forecast as we head through the next few, because so far Dorian has not been acting very nicely when it comes to our forecast, so this forecast is likely to change. But as of now, it's the best we got. So there's a look at your tropical update again for August 29th of 2019, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters.